Hello legends and super legends, welcome to Veloharmony. Today's ride is starting 30 minutes earlier. It's starting at 6:30. I found out late last night that Team RR moved the time up. So it worked out perfectly for me this week because I wanted to be back a little early anyway. A lot of other stuff going on at home, so it's going to be perfect. So I informed Paul. So we're planning to leave at 5:50. It's about 5:43 right now. I'm ready to roll. It's going to be another hot day in Central Texas. So I'm wearing my flyweight jersey, Anaerobic, this is called. And I'm taking the orange bike today. Same bike I took last week. Hadn't ridden in a while, so it'd be nice to take it out. But I'm all packed up. I'm going to put the gimbal in here. And what we'll try to do this time, if possible, is try to get additional shots like we did last week for other parts of the ride, not just the beginning. So hopefully we'll be able to, because sometimes the guys waste a lot of time. So when I get up early like this, I don't like to get out there and wait for anybody. So if they start messing around, we're just going to head out and finish our ride. So if that doesn't work out, then we'll see what we can put together. But hope you get a chance to get some K's in, and don't let anything stop you.
On this ride, I started in front of Paul a few minutes ahead. I wanted to kind of spin in easily. We got there around the same time because I did some loops once I got there. We picked up Team RR, went down Fish Creek into Hornier. Lots of action there. We filmed all the way until we got near Taco Corner. Once we got to Taco Corner, we basically let them go because they took off while Paul was inside. So Paul and I decided to take Bethel Road north to 149. We took 149 down to the Hidden Forest Drive, cut through Mount Pleasant Drive, came back to 1097. And when we got back to Montgomery, we took Lone Star Parkway to Montgomery High School, took the Tri-Lakes area, back towards Dobbin, took 1486 to Jackson Road. It was very windy. Took 149 past Karen into Magnolia. The wind just picked up. It was just blowing heavily, but it kept us cool even though it slowed us down quite a bit. So our overall time was behind, it didn't matter. It was a great ride. I hope you all got a chance to get out there this weekend. I think you will enjoy the clips.
And we're live, Fish Creek Boulevard. That's the man.
We decided to skip the warm-up this week and just started filming when the ride was about to pick up. We're right here on Fish Creek. We just passed Hornier Egypt Road. I turned the camera on, and while I was messing with the camera, I opened a bit of a gap. So I just used a little gear. I'm in like a 36-15 or something small like that. So I spun to get up to these boys. I'm wearing my flyweight. They call it the flyweight aero block. So it's an aero jersey, but it's flyweight. A lot of the other aero jerseys, the fabric is not super light. This weekend was very hot, especially on Sunday after this ride. It was muggy because it had rained in different spots on Saturday afternoon. So when it's muggy like that, I really lighten up what I wear. Makes a big difference. We're going over to Lake Creek. It's a little creek here. So there's bridges. In a little while, some motorist yells at us. We just ignore him. He's driving the opposite way. He just screams out the window something unintelligible just to get attention. Somebody with no life. We're too concentrated in what we're doing to pay attention to stuff like that. there. So it's like, what was that? I just heard the sound. I didn't even look in the direction or anything. I didn't know the camera had picked it up that well. I look back for traffic, nothing's coming. The road opens up in a few hundred yards into 2 lanes. It's clear, so I'm moving to the right lane because we're going to get 2 lanes here. We're approaching Wood Forest Boulevard, the south side of it. I had really good legs this morning. We've changed our training plan for early summer, so we're incorporating more rest days in our program. And we've ramped up the intensity. Sometimes when you're riding, it just feels good to stand. That's when I stand. Just instead of shifting down and spinning, sometimes I just stand in the same gear, keep it rolling. We've got the wind behind us and from the right now. We had a southeasterly flow the entire day. I believe Dan is at the front. With the tailwind, people get excited, and it's kind of early in the ride. They were planning on doing about, I'd say 4 hours, thereabouts. It's at 80 miles or something. We're doing our usual 6 hours plus. There's a part of Fish Creek that you all may have noticed last week where they have the barrels. They've kind of scraped up the pavement. You can see how nice the pavement is. I'm not sure what they're doing there, but they tore up the nice pavement and they lowered it. I think they're going to repave it because they're adding extra turn lanes into shopping centers. I mentioned it last week. And so at this point when we get there, it's maybe a ½ inch or so, maybe an inch lower than the rest of the pavement. They've scraped it up. They are not finished with what they're doing. They're trying to get the new lanes to be at the same level with the current part of the road. It's up ahead. You see the orange sign in the middle to the left. That's what they're letting people know construction's going on. There's a gentleman named Bob Merrill. I found out from Tim Vibrock. Tim's ridden with us last couple of weeks in a row. They had gone to Spain and they did some cycling adventures while they were there. So they came back and Tim had posted the night before that he and a friend were going to do 4 hours. And you will see as we get near the overpass, because they did a lot of climbing while they were in Spain, I guess. When we get near the overpass, they start to ride away from the group, just the 2 of them. And I had not planned it. I decided to bridge up to them, but then when I started to bridge up, I just continued the effort and went ahead and passed them. You'll see it. This is what I'm talking about here. You can see next to the barrels there, a little darker asphalt. They've scraped up the current asphalt that we're on, and it's lower slightly than this one. And they're going to blend the extra lanes that they're adding on the right and the left.
No, you get up there. What are you talking about? Get up there. You get up there.
That's Paul and Dan. Dan told Paul to get up there. Paul said, you get up there. Dan had been sitting at the front this whole time. I'm not sure why he told Paul to get up there. And I don't know what I told Paul there, but that had nothing to do with what he and Dan was talking about. When we stop at the lights, everybody's jockeying for not being at the front. I think that's what that was about. And Dan wanted Paul to get up there. This is the pavement I'm talking about. You see all the new black asphalt on the left? When they're done, it will all be one level. But they've scraped everything up because they're adding. See how this thing on the right is higher? That's what I'm talking about. They'll blend everything the way it'll be nice and smooth. They're adding 2 extra lanes so that people who are turning left or turning right can stay out of the flow of traffic. So once we get through there, we're back on the normal pavement. They're trying to accommodate shopping centers in there. So you can see after that, get up there, you get up there, the boys are up the road. I'm just sitting on Tim here. I mean, I can bridge up to them. I'm not that concerned about it. But I want to see if Tim will tow us back. Paul Elonga is behind me, and Tim is here in front of me. So I'm not sure why Dan told Paul to get up there. Paul said, "You get up there." What I've noticed, this area used to have nothing but I guess stop signs just on the side streets, and we're getting more traffic lights. As the volume and the growth increases, they're putting signals, traffic signals at certain intersections, like at Ridge Lake Shores. They've got traffic signals there now. And usually when they do that, they still favor the main boulevard, like Fish Creek. The lights will favor it, and they'll put sensors on the side street. So when it's not so busy, it can stay green for this light. So once we get to us, you can see the road going up. I don't know if it registers or not, but you feel it. It says 2%. If it says 2, it's probably more like 3. We slow down because I believe the light was red, now it's green. This is a new signal. This was not here last week. They built it, but they had it covered. Now they've turned it on. It allows the people in the neighborhoods to get out in traffic. This road is not that busy. I don't really know. So they study the growth patterns and then decide when they need to add a signal. At this point, I'm not really thinking about sprinting up that bridge or anything. That has not crossed my mind. We're just riding our usual. We're going to do 6 hours. We plan to, since there were a few people had said they would do 4 hours. I was pleased to hear that, because that meant that we would have group company for most of the ride. But what ends up happening is we only stay with these guys up to Taco Corner, because as I mentioned in the route commentary, we did an extra loop because they went straight to Taco Corner. We went ahead and did an extra loop, and then we got to Taco Corner while they were still there. And while Paul was inside the store, it took off. So when he came out, I told him, let's just do our own thing. I'm standing here because it just feels good to stand. I'm keeping the same gear. So my cadence is kind of low for me. But that's when you stand, you don't want to feel like you have to sprint every time. You can just stand and get a comfortable rhythm to just keep the gear rolling. This is what I was talking about. You don't need to let anybody know you're standing. You just stand on the downstroke where your bike does not come back. After the sprint that you guys will see, we continue, you will see there's a wheel touch where Tim and his buddy Bob actually ends up, Bob Merrill says he thought he had dropped you. But Tim got a little careless, even though I told him it wasn't his fault, because you know, you're supposed to protect your front wheel. But basically, after my attack, I guess they thought I was winded, so they started to do slight accelerations, which was not that hard. I was ready to ride, and I was in a tight formation with them, and then Tim slowed down and came over to the right. He did not realize I was there, and Bob Merrill was aware of it, because all Bob said was he thought he had dropped you. I knew what he meant, as if to say he didn't expect me to be where I was, but he didn't check before moving right. So he slowed down suddenly, which caused an overlap, and our wheels touched. And it's pretty dramatic because Paulie Long is behind us. You will see the camera move because Paul moved to the left and exclaimed. But whenever your wheels touch, your bike has a tendency to fishtail. And if you're not used to that, you can panic, and that's what will cause you to fall. So all of that, I did some replays to explain that, so you can expect that. We used to practice that. We used to practice bumping and doing different things. I've had that happen enough time in races to where it doesn't startle me, and I pretty much just steer and go with the bike. You'll see that on full. But that's something to be careful about, because most people, if you're not prepared for it, it can cause you to fall, because the person whose rear wheel you hit is not likely to fall, especially if you're not holding your front wheel right. That's why you need to have both hands on the bars when you're in tight formation, which will work, and you'll see that, which I did. So it never startled me or anything. I just got the bike back under control, and we just continued riding. So I'm mentioning it so you don't think it's something casual. Now right around here, Bob Merrill looks behind. It's as if they had planned it. I guess they planned to just pick up the pace because they like to go on the hills hard. They just got back from their climbing trip in Spain. So I see that, and I immediately move up past Neville. At this point, I'm still not thinking about sprinting up this climb. And then right here, I decided to bridge up to them. But I decided to take no passengers. That's full gas. But I got up to them a lot quicker than I thought and just decided to continue my effort. You will see it again. Here's the replay. So my goal here was to bridge up to them, but I got up there so quickly. The entire effort is 18 seconds, and how come I remember it? It ended up giving me a 5th place on the Strava segment for this, they call it 2854 wall. So I got 5th place out of 2,000 people that are registered on the segment. So I was like, man, you know, I don't carry the segments on my head unit, so I wasn't going for the segment. I just did the effort. But I continued the effort here. Paulie Longa rides around the rest of the guys, and I'm in front of those guys. When I looked under my arm, there was a gap, and I just continued to ride. And while I'm riding, I'm actually recovering. If you look at my heart rate, it went up to like 170 something. Now it's dropping as I ride. That's what those long winter rides prepare your body for. That you can do a hard effort, recover, and go again. And that's what Tim was not aware of, I guess, because he thought I was gassed, and you'll see them make moves, and then I'm ready to ride. And then I end up continuing, you'll see it unfold. You can see my light right there. They're working to come up to me, he and Bob. Bob is pulling him. And Paulie Longa is catching up here. I was not even aware of what was going on. I was just riding. I was basically just holding a steady tempo there. I'm right at sweet spot. So Paul is up here. So just the 4 of us now off the front. What was surprising was Paul ends up putting the camera behind here. Look at the gap. You can't even see those guys. That's how you can start a break. And that's what I talked about. You go hard, and you should have plenty left so that if you do get a break going, you have something to continue. So at this point, I'm not aware there's such a huge gap. I'm just riding. And Bob Merrill's on the right. I can see him, but I know we're turning left. So that's where we rode last week. This is McCaleb Road. But since we're going to be turning left, I look for traffic and I'm using the main lane. This is Capitol Hill Road. I think I tagged it here. That's coming up. So if you have not prepared and you do an effort like that, a lot of times you can't continue. You need to slow down and recover. Well, I've already done the work as far as not just the endurance stuff, but the efforts to where my body recovers. I'm already recovered. I'm riding here like that effort did not happen. Tim's not aware of it, so watch. This is a climb. I sit, then Bob goes on the left. Tim accelerates. I pick up my pace and I get on Tim's wheel. That's what, at this point, he thought they had gapped me. He thought that I basically needed to rest or something. That's what that effort was about. And Bob ended up saying it. You're not going to hear it. But watch. I'm between them. This is tight. Watch. He starts to move to the right. We're about to touch wheels right there. Right there. And so it surprised Paul because when we touched wheels, my bike did a fishtail like an S. And if you're not ready for that, it can cause you to fall because you end up overreacting or overcorrecting, I call it. So I asked him if he was okay. He said he was good and he stayed back. He was more concerned about not falling with the camera, you know, and getting the camera and the gimbal damaged. And I'm like, that's what he told me. In a little while, you will see me wave him up. I said, come on. Because for me, it's no big deal. I've been there, done that. Tell him, Paul, come on, let's ride. And so I told Tim, I said, well, it's not really your fault. You know, he's, well, you know, you protected your front wheel, blah, blah. Well, he shouldn't have moved over to the right. He was going to talk to Bob. He didn't realize I was there. And Bob ended up saying, yeah, he thought you had been dropped. He thought he had dropped you. That's what Bob said. So he admitted, I just didn't want Tim to feel self-conscious per se, but he knew that he moved over, but it's not the end of the world. I should have reacted myself. I did not expect him to move to the right. There was no reason for him to do that because the wind is coming from the left. I expected him to stay left. I expected him to continue to go because he had just pulled through after Bob had pulled off. But I guess the effort was harder than he figured. So for me, no fuss, no muss, but I wanted to show that so you're aware. So the power's off long enough. Now watch, this is Maurice. Look at Maurice's face. They had to work to catch up. So, what's his name? Bob wants Paul to come up. Because that move that Bob made and then Tim went after my attack, they chased me, all of that, it taxes you. And so he needed to take a break right there. He wanted me to tell Paul to come up. Now watch, as we turn here, Tim doesn't want to be on the front. He needs a break. So as we turn, I just continue. It's clear, I continue riding. The reason I'm explaining all of this is because when you're riding, you've probably been there. Making a big effort, if you have not prepared your engine for it, it takes a long time to recover. That's what Tim thought was happening with me when they made that little slight acceleration. No. With all the miles that we did in the winter and whatever, and it's kind of like you can see the guys getting a drink, everybody's trying to recover. But when you've prepared, and then the kind of workouts that we're doing to prepare for that, it's not something that's foreign to my engine. So while I was riding after the overpass, my body had already recovered. You have to train yourself to go hard and surge and continue. That's how you open a break. So I just sit at the front, keeping the effort going. Because a lot of times if you're not in condition and you make a move like that, a lot of times you need a lot of time to recover and be able to go again. And what we've been doing for the last several weeks is what we call anaerobic capacity efforts, which teaches you to go above threshold, recover, go again. That's what you need when you ride competitively, whether it's a criterium or a road race. That's what it takes. Because those efforts take a lot out of you. I move over, tell them let's just spin, let's keep the effort going. So Paulie Lunga follows through. I think I end up drifting quite a ways to the back. I wanted people to come through. I don't know how far back I go. I think I end up at the back of the group because in a short while we go through the four-way stop sign and you guys will see what's his name, Doug Martin, lose his bottle. What happens is he has one of these plastic bottle cages, not carbon, just regular plastic, and where the bolts hold it, it did like a vertical space to where you could slide the cage in any position and screw the bolts in. Well, that vertical space just split, so the cage basically was useless, and you would see the bottle fall. And the reason I mention that is that you have to keep up with your equipment like that, because that can cause a wreck in a group. If the bottle falls and someone's not paying attention, it can cause them to run over the bottle and fall if they're not alert. So that's not cool. You know, if you can avoid that, check your cages regularly. Make sure they're nice and tight so you don't lose your bottle in the pack. It's the vertical cage on his seat tube that falls apart. And when I looked at the clips, you could see it just happening, but on the road all we saw was the bottle. So right here we approach the four-way stop sign. Tim checks. There's a car coming from the left, but he's not at the intersection yet, so we start to go. I have to tell Doug to go through because he started to slow down for the car. It's like we're going through like a train. So we go through the intersection. That guy on the right also went to Spain with Tim. I didn't get his name. Yeah, just that's Dan. And that's Doug right there. Watch. There goes the bottle. Then the cage. So I just slow down and turn around, and I picked up both the cage and the bottle because I wanted to show him that the cage was useless. So I'm back there because I was at the back of the pack. By the time he gets back there, I already have the bottle. I handed it to him. He put it in his middle jersey pocket, and we just pretty much tossed the cage. I told him maybe you should get either a carbon cage or an aluminum cage or something metal, because the plastic just can't hold it. So somebody mentioned to him that that's what you get for keeping your bike in the garage in the heat.
Mechanical of some sort.
Yeah. He dropped his water bottle.
Oh, you dropped it?
Yeah. Martin.
Well, the cage and the bottle. That's all that hard riding you've been doing.
No, it's all the sitting in the garage, that plastic.
So he says that's because it's sitting in the garage. I don't think it's because it was in the garage. It doesn't get that hot. It's just the cage was very flimsy, and Doug carries those very long thermal bottles. But some thermal bottles, whatever they use to keep things cool, it increases the size, the physical size of the bottle. Doesn't necessarily hold more liquid, but they're long. And that's a lot of weight. You can see it in his pocket right there, how high up his back it reaches. So we just resume riding here. I always go for sturdy stuff. I've got metal cages on my bike, all my bikes. But I think carbon cages are fine. They're stronger than just regular plastic. Dan's up the road. Tim and Bob Merrill did not stop for the cage falling. They kept riding. So we'll catch up to them in a few kilometers. But I start to steadily pull Bob back. And what I decided to explain here is that we were taught when we used to compete that you make up more ground on the uphill because there's no free speed per se. And you can on the downhill. So like right here, I'm a big guy. I put it in a gear and you can see the speeds are up. And I start going hard before I even get on the uphill. But you will see that on the uphill, I get closer to Bob quicker. Not Bob, Dan. Watch, I'm using high cadence here, but I'm putting out power. More power than he is. You see, we're pulling him back. And throughout just my cycling experience, I found that it was always easier to catch people on the uphill because it's watts per kilo. You can't cheat. You stop pedaling, you stop putting the power down. There's no coasting. You see, we're back. I start to back off because I know we're turning. And I go ahead and pre-select my gear for the corner. Lift the inside pedal there and turn. And spin. He's standing, I'm spinning whatever I'm in. Kind of like when you're in a car, you stick shift, you're supposed to put it in second gear before you get out of the corner. You know, when you're preparing for the corner. Same thing. You find the gear you need. So you accelerate out of the corner. I was not aware there were this many gaps on just these little grooves here. And so it was interesting to see that when I reviewed the clips. Because here we're just riding. Right here, I'm just using the fact that the road is slightly downhill and I'm in the drops. As we go in this curve here, Dan will accelerate, and I believe I end up standing. I don't remember what gear I'm in, but I end up standing so I won't have to downshift right there. Kick up and get on his wheel. Just a few strokes. I know that this road is bumpy to the right, so I stay left as much as possible. And we've already caught up to Tim and Bob Merrill. And I really don't want to slow down now that we're going. Dan goes around them, and then he sits up, and I just continue the effort. Now remember, since my attack, I've been pretty much near the front. And what happened is, it's hard. So not everybody wants to come and pull through. Because everybody's struggling at the back. You saw the gaps. And all I'm doing is keeping it steady. Because the thing is that we're not going that hard at this point. So if they ride smart, they should be able to stay. It should be no problem. But you'll see more gaps. We have to go around riders as we turn in a few kilometers. We'll turn left. I stood up there, but there was a little bump. It's one of those deceiving bumps that are not clear. It's almost like the pavement is imperfect, but it's a dip. Like a dip that you can't see very well. I don't like those. They surprise you. This is a tricky corner here because I remember once in the rain it was very slippery. So I respect that corner. It's an odd corner. You come down, you're descending and you're cornering and you're carrying so much speed. So I always try to make sure I get a good line through there. And since I've been at the front so long, I don't believe I stay here too long. I think I'll pull off after a while, a little bit. There we go. I just tell Paul, let's keep it rolling. I tell him as he comes by, I said, don't stay up there too long. Dan goes through. That's Tim. I didn't get the name of the guy in front of Tim, but he's one of the guys that went on the trip with him I mentioned earlier. polish on Tim's wheel, and I wait to make sure everybody comes through. It's Doug Martin. That's Maurice. They've got the same jersey on. There's 3 people. Neville was wearing the same jersey. You see him come through. The road's going up here. Times when you need to push. That's what it calls for. You push hard. I begin to see a gap opening here between several riders at the front guys. So I'll let Paul know in a little bit. And I'll go ahead and put the power to accelerate and ride up to those guys. Gaps. I was very surprised about those gaps because we're really just going steady but hard. Not really hard, but I guess I'm just climbing. So this area here, Mill Route, is a good place to get a workout. I like coming through here because every 100 yards or so the road goes up. I don't know why Dan does that. He sits upright when we're climbing. Tim's taking another flyer. He's not really going anywhere, so I'm eyeballing it, and we just gotta roll back. At this point, I don't plan to stop at 2854. They usually stop at that corner to try and regroup, but we're not really going that hard, and I feel like we just need to keep riding steadily, and the other guys will catch up. As long as we're not going super hard, they should be able to catch up. I don't like to get off the bike too often. Keep moving. So right here, we're putting the power down again. The road is going slightly up, not much. Tim's out of the saddle. They usually like to sprint here, but he's in too small of a gear. We basically just ride past him. That gear he's in is not going to get him forward. We're moving. I'm actually soft pedaling. The other part of this, the highways up there, is slightly downhill. And we just kind of roll to the highway. It's not uncommon for us to be doing more than 40 something kilometers or 3 kilometers per hour. Because it's easy. As we approach the corner, Maurice pulls off. I go ahead and roll through. And Tim is planning on stopping. I'm not. So I go ahead, I check, it's clear. I told him it was clear. I take the shoulder, and I'm riding. The effort is low. It's like zone 2. It's nothing. I figured to ride up to me. So I guess Tim was forced to continue. That looks like Tim and Dan. When people take flyers in the group, I like to keep the pressure on. That's a test. It will test your fitness. So if you're not fit enough and you start monkeying around, this will call you out. Keep it right about endurance pace, top of zone 2, effort-wise. Go steady. I figure if somebody wants to go faster, they can come around. This road is going to kick up in a few kilometers. It's a gradual grade. Falls flat. This is the road that a few weeks ago I rode with WCC on Sunday, and Jerry Lutner was there. And this road, at the steepest point, Jerry was doing like here right now it says 1%, it's flickering. Jerry was doing 40 kilometers an hour, going up at 2% grade thereabout, and he held it. It was sustainable for him, and he held it until we got to the downhill section of this road that you will see. And it was just hard. It was a nice, hard pace. And so I told him about it, and he kind of laughed when we're at the store. He said, "Oh, I like to do that every time I go through there." And that's cool. It was good to hear, because that's the reason you do a similar course all the time. And then you do different things in different sections. That gets rid of, that eliminates any boredom you're going to have from doing familiar courses. He says every time he goes through there, he likes to do that. And it's not easy doing 40 kilometers an hour with 2% grade. We're working. He and I had talked about previously how you split up the effort on a hard climb or hard situation. And that's what brought that up that day. And I told him, I said, yeah, I was using your 10-second rule. He started laughing. So even though we're not going very hard, we come up on a couple of riders that are just kind of leisurely spinning out here, chatting. I don't change anything because I see them up the road. I'm not chasing them or anything. I just keep my efforts steady. This is the stretch where you see that car is. That's where Jerry started going really hard. That's like the hardest part of this road. I checked for traffic before I went out there. The guy said good morning, but I was focused on working. Paul spoke to him. So I figured that covered me. I have a nice rhythm going here, and I just wanted to just keep everything rolling. This is where Jerry started doing 40 kilometers an hour, and he held it the whole way. And then we went even faster after we crested the bump you see in that curve. All of this here is falls flat. It kicks and you feel it in your legs through this turn. Right about here, it's like a landmark. At this point, you realize the road's leveling off and it's going to start descending, and it's a fast descent. It's the hill that we filmed going the opposite way a few weeks back when we wore the team again. You see that? This is a descent, and we really go fast now. When we ride with the WCC guys, this is where Will took off the front on the Sunday ride. Down here they really go fast. You see us, we're gonna break 50 kilometers an hour easily. Not really trying, I'm just keeping the effort the same. Take a drink there. descent towards the light at 105. We don't usually film this section, so it was good to get it on film, because after you go across the light, okay, this is where we probably got close to 50K. But after you go across the light here, the name changes, it becomes Lone Star Parkway. I check, no cars coming, so I take the main lane. We have to stop. It's nice when you can time that light, but we have to stop here. As soon as we stop, the light goes green. So the name changes from 2854 back there, and now becomes Lone Star Parkway. And it's like a shoehorn. It goes west all the way to, it hits 105 on the other side, near Montgomery, the other side of Montgomery High School. And it's probably about 6-7 kilometers. I go around Doug Martin because these guys are just riding away from me. I ride up to them, just sit, get a feel for what they're doing. This road here, usually when we come with WCC, it's a lot faster than this. This road continues to go up, just like you see. The grade continues to go up and it stays. It's at least 2 kilometers. So maybe a mile and a half, somewhere. It's long enough to where you feel it. Move to the left because I know Paul Ilonga is on my right. So as I stand, because I will stand and then stretch a little bit. I know he's on my right. When you're riding, always be aware of the following rider's location. And so what you saw earlier was, because Tim was not paying attention or did not look to see where I was, he moved in my direction. It was not so much the move that caused the wheels to touch, it was his abrupt deceleration that created the overlap. So even though it's not your fault, when it's your front wheel that hits somebody's rear wheel, you're the person who's more likely to topple over. It's kind of like when somebody cuts you off and you run into their rear, you know. The officer will probably give you the ticket. Because you ran into the rear even though you didn't cause it. Same situation. All of this, we're still going up, and then it's going to curve to the left. So at the end of this stretch here, they're going to turn right to go to Taco Corner. We continue straight. But really it was kind of early in the ride to even stop. We had just started, our bottles were still full. And so we decided to do the extra loop. All of that is off camera. And then we start the filming when we are returning on Jackson Road. So this first hour was intense. It's like a little criteria on the way to Taco Corner. So we let Tim know. He thought we'd turn in. I told him no, we're going straight. I thought it would spin around and catch up with you guys.
Kill the camera here, my brother.
Huh?
Kill the camera here.
Okay.
We'll spin around and go back to Taco Corner. Still moving.
So at this point, we're on Jackson
On
Road.
the way home, we decided to get some clips with Jackson Road coming up.
And on this stretch, we are getting pounded by the south wind. You hear it. At the end of this stretch, you will hear me even tell the wind, bring it on. You know, I get excited as it picks up. You just find the right gear and do the work. Let the wind do its thing, you do yours. We're on 1486 here. We're climbing towards Jackson Road up there on the left. What I was telling him is when you turn in here, you want to keep your eye on that hill because the cars just pop up over the hill. So you need to be real careful. So we check, and I keep my eye on that hill as we turn. It's all clear, we go. So you're not surprised.
Yeah.
That corner has a sharp grade as you turn. It's almost like one of the switchbacks on those famous coals. So we're headed kind of easterly here, but it's going to end up turning south. You can see the road curving to the right in the distance. This road is a Strava segment, but we're not setting any records today with the wind blowing like it is. We ended up doing the majority of the ride, just the two of us, because I'm not really sure what happened in Taco Corner, but the guys took off before we were ready to go. So we just decided we're going to do our own thing. So this is yet another reason why you cannot use speed as a training metric, because you will be off on a day like this where the wind is howling. You try to use speed, you will kill yourself to hold a certain speed. Basically take what the terrain gives us. Right here is slightly downhill. Try to keep the effort the same. So you want to pretty much get into some kind of a rhythm and pay attention to the sensations of your engine, you know, what it's telling you. You don't overload it. Parts of this road is somewhat sheltered. Somebody dropped a bunch of trash on the side of the road there. Part of the road is somewhat sheltered from the wind, but not entirely. We chose this route today to return because we did not want to deal with the full Tri-Lakes route, since the roads are all chopped up. They're doing some construction to try to repair it. So I keep my cadence up so my legs are not overloaded, because when you're going against a lot of resistance, you want to kind of make sure your legs don't tighten up, you don't get bogged down. Slight downhill here, so our speed's up, but the effort is about the same. My heart rate really is not representing the effort. It's showing like top of zone 1. I'm in zone 2. At least that. It's really challenging training with heart rate. You really have to understand the nuances involved. That's why power meters are very popular, because they're direct and instant. Cut out all the variables. So I think they're the number one training tool if you can afford to get one. That's the way to go. But you can train with a heart rate monitor. You just have to understand how to use it. There are certain workouts where they're not applicable. Heart rate has nothing to do with what I did on the overpass. The road's going up, and with the wind, I decided that I wanted to stand. It just felt good. If you notice, my body position stays the same, as close to the riding position, even though I'm out of the saddle. You don't need to stand upright. That is the way to stand. Keep your body the same. You're just dancing on the pedals, using your upper body strength. For us big guys, it's good to do. It's an advantage, really, because when I stand, I can put more force in the pedals. If I get the right rhythm, it's actually sometimes it's more efficient to stand and roll a bigger gear. Sometimes. But generally, it's more efficient to be in the saddle. There are times when it just feels right to stand. So you got to go by how you're feeling and mix it up. So for the most part, most of this route, I think we stayed between 18 to 20 miles an hour speed-wise. But that was not like a goal. We're just riding. And since it was just the two of us, I think we got a better workout, because you will see, in a few kilometers, I would switch out and let Paul come take his cuts at the front. So if you got, I think the ideal number of riders is set between 3 and 5. You can get a great workout versus a large group. And so even in a large group, if you stay near the front and rotate and do the work up front, you can get a good workout. So with the two of us, we really made good time. We were very efficient. We didn't waste a lot of time. We only stopped when we needed to. I think we had at least 3 stops, but we stopped when we needed to. We stopped primarily to get fluids. You don't want to be behind, as I've said before, because it directly affects your performance. That's the biggest detriment to riding in the heat. If you don't hydrate yourself, you'll have problems. So the hotter it gets, the more you want to drink. Sometimes I even pour water on my head, on my whole body. It just cools you off as the wind dries you off. I did that on Thursday. It was very hot. And I poured cold water on my head, all the way on my whole body while I was riding. It felt really good. So you finish your ride strongly. This road is up and down. It's a little quiet in this spot. We're going more southeasterly, so yeah, the wind is still there, but not as much right there. Got a little bit of shelter from the trees. The bandana that I wear really helps keep the sweat out of my eyes. But the other helmet I have, the Bell Zephyr, does a good job of channeling the sweat away from your eyes. So sometimes I'll ride without the bandana when I use the Bell helmet. It does a great job. So the combination of the kind of riding you do and the kind of workouts you do will prepare you for whatever event you're training for. You need to make sure you're prepared because you will have more fun. The road goes up, I stand to keep the gear rolling. You can see I stand and sit without changing my momentum. You need to practice that so your bike does not move back. Learn to keep a straight line. You saw what happened earlier. When you don't hold a straight line, you can cause problems for other riders. And even if it's not your fault necessarily, if your wheel, like what happened with Tim, if you're causing those kind of issues, I mean, it'd be like, you can become persona non grata, even if you're technically in the right, because you really have to be aware of where the other riders are as you make moves. Even the pros, when they're sprinting, if you sprint and change your line and create a dangerous situation, you get relegated to the back of the finishing group. So whenever you're changing your line, make sure you look before you move and make all your moves gradual. You can hear the wind. I actually welcome the wind because it kept us cool. When we're heading north, it was stickier. And coming south, even though our speeds were diminished, it was more comfortable. So I'll take the wind over a faster ride any day, especially when it's very hot. I'll take the wind. Psychologically, the wind is very tough because you don't get a reprieve. Like when you climb a hill and you crest the hill, you get a downhill. The wind is like fighting a gorilla. And the Veloharmony is one of the rules, I believe. Was it the Veloharmony? And I read somewhere that when you're fighting a gorilla, you don't stop when you're tired. You stop when the gorilla is tired. I think it has something to do with training, cycling training being tough. and so the wind is psychologically a challenge for a lot of riders. And you may have experienced where you went on a windy ride and everything seemed extra hard. You can use the wind to improve your climbing if you live in a flat area like Kansas, places like that. The Dutch have a lot of climbers that come from, and that's a flat country, so it's like pretty much sea level or slightly below, and they've developed some great climbers. So that's how you want to look at the wind. We wanted to film this section so you can see this is most of the training we're doing. That's why we don't like to stop. Granted, we're not going full gas, we're not going super hard, but this is like almost sweet spot, which is between zone 3 and 4. Top of tempo. It's a good effort level. So if you do this for an hour or so, it's a good workout. We try to keep our moving time as close as possible to our elapsed time. I don't want to be out there for 8 hours and only ride 6. That's not a very good use of time. We're not the only one that share that mantra. When we ride with Mo and them, everything's discussed. They talk about, if we're stopping over here, you guys saw that a few weeks back on one of the clips. He said, we stop in Decas, it needs to be quick. And then he made a joke about taco corner, you can lay down or whatever. but pretty much people got the gist of it, because you can talk while you're riding. We don't ride fast the entire time, so we don't need to be standing around when we're out there. So you get home and do something else with the rest of the day. We start our day around, now that they changed the time to 6:30 for the start, I got up at 4:50, gave myself enough time. Trying to give myself an hour to get ready so I'm not rushing. Just ease into the morning. That's why I like to take my time to ride to them. I don't want to start going full gas before I'm fully warmed up. We should be approaching where Jackson Road becomes, hits Highway 149, same direction. And I think that's where we switch places. And let Paul come to the front, so I can get a break from the wind. That's the nice thing about having a riding partner. So when you're out on a long ride, you guys need to have similar mindset and take care of your riding partners, because they can give you a spell out of the wind. You know, it's nice to have a wheel when you're resting or something. So there's a stop sign here, Highway 149, when you go straight or left. That's 149. We're gonna go straight. So I check, nothing's coming, I just roll, and then I let Paul know to come through. He thought I wanted to turn off the camera.
Turn it off here? Okay.
So he asked if I want to turn it. I said, no, I want to get you on camera.
Okay. Got it. Go ahead. Get you on camera. La Pasión.
Paul's wearing the La Pasión lightweight orange jersey. On Highway 149. This is a good route to ride because all of it, you got a nice shoulder you can use, and it's not super busy. The traffic moves at a good speed, you know, but it's not congested, and it may look flat, but it's not. So you get a good workout on it. I just like that you can ride for 6-7 kilometers before you come to an intersection. So you get a workout out here. So it's good exercise potential. That's how we pick our routes. So this time of year we use the lightest fabrics. You hear that wind? I mean, it's pounding. I put the camera down so we can get Paul rides. I think he has a 50 on there, 34. He's got a compact setup. I think he's on the 50. He might be on the 19 in the back or something like that. We're rolling along. I used a slightly higher gear ratio when I was behind him here, because I was in the draft just kind of rolling along. I mean, that wind just got more intense the closer we got to Magnolia. So even though he's calling out stuff, I stay in a position of where I can see around him. That's a good habit to develop when you're in the pace line. Don't ride blind. There's something on the road that I just stay on the white line. Looks like roadkill. The wind is swirling around, even though we're headed, it says southeasterly, we're heading more south, but the wind is everywhere. So I just stayed directly behind him, slightly to the left a little bit. But listen to that. And the road's going up here. It's a slight grade. It does not exceed 1%, I don't believe. So you can get a feel for what we're dealing with coming back. And if you're doing this solo, all you do is you get a rhythm, keep yourself in position, and just ride. I think I said something about the wind there. You can't even hear me because there's so much wind. So this is a good situation where you can do what I call hill climb intervals per se. Use the wind to simulate a long climb. When we get near Montgomery, you will hear it and kick it. I even said, "Bring it on, wind!" it just starts to blow even more. Just a slight downhill here gives you a bit of a reprieve. So the wind is blowing directly in our face and from the left at this point. We're headed between south and southeasterly. And in the summer, that's the direction of the wind most of the time. From the Gulf of Mexico. This is where it starts to really pick up. In a little while, I'll tell Paul that I need to stop at the store because I'm low on fluids. And the wind picks up even more. Listen.
Yeah, the wind is bad.
So I hope you all got a chance to get some K's in. But this is part of what we did on Saturday. We stopped here just briefly, fill up our bottles, and wrapped up the ride. We're near Magnolia, Texas. Keep those doctors fired.
Talking about